am Dr. Jennifer Barr, the founder of Resilience Naturopathic.
And I am Jody Putnicki, the mom.
And she said that because we are a team that we do mom and doc talks regularly. And we are here today with this year's PANS and PANDAS awareness video. We are wanting to talk to you a little bit about what PANS and PANDAS is, what we do, and how we help folks with PANS and PANDAS recover and get to a place of just being able to experience life and not have to worry about all of the exposures and illnesses that people who are living with PANS and PANDAS live in fear of or have to mitigate and like live their lives around. And we're going to focus this year on healing and what that really looks like and awareness that healing is possible. So I'm going to start with telling you a little bit about what PANS and PANDAS is. So PANS stands for Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome. PANDAS is not quite a subset of PANS, but kind of a subset of PANS. It's pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections. And so PANDAS is a really well studied and understood symptom picture that comes together as a result of an exposure to strep specifically. PANS can have similar symptoms appear, which would be things like OCD, sudden onset separation anxiety, rage, sleep disturbances, urinary issues, including urinary incontinence for kids who have previously been potty trained, bedwetting for kids who've been nighttime trained for quite some time, regressions in cognitive skills, especially reading comprehension and math skills, difficulty in writing, onset of tics, and other neurological movements is the pretty typical presentation that you're going to see with both PANS and PANDAS. There can also be some avoidant restrictive food intake that can occur. Kind of like an OCD presentation that can also sort of look a little bit like anorexia because there's food intake that's restricted, usually associated with fears or intrusive thoughts related to that food or health in general, or something that's just preventing the kids from eating, not so much the concern about body. Typically, PANS and PANDAS will occur in a cyclical pattern after an exposure to something. With PANS, it could be anything that could trigger an immune response. With PANDAS, it's specifically strep. So PANS could be other infections, including Lyme and co-infections. It could be mycoplasma is a common one that triggers it for these kiddos. It could also be mold, environmental toxins or allergens, anything that tells the immune system that there's something there that shouldn't be there. And then the immune system having this misdirected response where instead of having a typical immune presentation, we see these neuropsychiatric symptoms. And so a lot of times we're looking at an acute onset, but not always. And that's one of the things that can be a little bit of a misperception about PANS or PANDAS, that it has to be acute onset. It can be an acute onset that happened over time as well, where you have several patterns of acute onsets that you don't realize are acutes because they come and go in sort of a sawtooth pattern. And so it can be something that you figure out way after the fact that doesn't look like it was much of an acute onset, but it still has that fluctuating pattern that you can see as a response to an exposure to something. And let's be honest, some of the things that we can have exposure that can trigger a PANS type response are something that you have a constant exposure to. And so you can't get a break, and it could be more persistent over time if that's something that's going on. So Jody, why don't you talk a little bit about what PANS actually looks like in the home?
Daughter Avery was perfectly happy, healthy little girl living life like kids live. And then somewhere around 5 years old, she had hers wasn't like an overnight boom. Hers was a little bit slower, kind of a couple of different onsets. Went from being a totally normal kid to having intrusive thoughts. She was having OCD. She was having anxiety. She had age regression. She had literally all of the things that Dr. Barr talked about just a second ago. Extreme separation anxiety where I couldn't even be in a different room than she was in. She just went from being my kid to I didn't recognize who she was. We were, went from life being totally normal to all of a sudden we were spending our days managing separation anxiety and managing rages and trying to figure out why she wouldn't eat certain foods because she was afraid that they were going to kill her. And, dealing with fear of going outside, fear of bugs, fear of a ball hitting her in the face, fear, like extreme, over the top, not sleeping at all, like taking hours to go to sleep, never being able to sleep by herself. Math and handwriting, just, it's like she was able to do those things, and then all of a sudden she could barely do them at all. Reading, like she couldn't even read a sentence off of a piece of paper. And all the tics, like all different kinds of coughing, arm movements, hand movements, everything. It's like her whole body just quit on her, and nothing, or maybe not even quit, but like went into hyperdrive, and there's so many things that she didn't have control of. It was just, my kid was there and then she was gone. And it was like I could see her, but the child that she was before her onset she just wasn't there.
Focus on at Resilience Naturopathic is helping kids who have an experience like Jody's daughter had recover and get to the place of being fully healed using a type of medicine called homeopathy. And what homeopathy does that's different than other types of medicine that you probably are learning about in other PANDAS Awareness Day videos is that it really focuses on susceptibility. And so if you think about it, we've all had exposure to the things, except for maybe Lyme, but we've all had exposure to the things that can trigger a PANS or PANDAS response in children, and yet we don't all have PANS or PANDAS. And so there's a lot of focus on the bug or the mold or the toxin or whatever it happens to be. Homeopathy really focuses on the individual and their susceptibility to having this atypical response and to having the exact atypical response that they have. Because those of you who are familiar with PANS or PANDAS already know that if you put 10 kids in an office, they all have PANS or PANDAS, they're going to have similarities, but they're going to have a lot of differences too. And so homeopathy addresses PANS and PANDAS by looking at that unique susceptibility and then being a gentle nudge to the body to heal and to heal as a whole person so that the body can get to the place where it can have exposures to strep, to mold, to allergens, to solvents, to whatever happens to be their particular trigger, and not have an atypical and misdirected immune response that we're seeing in PANS and PANDAS. And so it's able to do that on its own. It's able to be resilient in the face of these triggers and bounce back on its own. It takes time, but the goal of this video is not to talk about all of the treatments and the ways that we can address PANS and PANDAS and at all, because we really want to focus this time on you and the fact that healing and recovery is possible, because we've got a lot of teams that are working all over the world on helping understand that this is something that exists and here are the options. And we've even done our own in past years. So if you want to learn more about the specific things we do, you can either visit our YouTube page, that might be where you found us as well. We've got our past videos where we go into a lot more detail about healing with PANS and PANDAS, or healing PANS and PANDAS with homeopathy, and other people's stories and their journeys and everything to help you get a little bit more of an idea of that experience. And we've got a ton of educational videos in our Facebook group, Homeopathy for PANS and PANDAS, which is open for anybody who is a caregiver of somebody who has PANS or PANDAS or suspects PANS or PANDAS to join. There's tons of educational videos there. So I'm going to direct you to either of those places if you want to learn more about the options for healing from PANS and PANDAS. And what we're going to focus on today is awareness that this doesn't have to be forever, that this is something that you can heal and recover from and put in your past. And Jody, I would love if you could talk about that, because you are one of the inspirations for doing this. And in fact, this particular focus this year was your brilliant idea.
I know this little thing that I love, that there are so many other families that are starting to know and understand and walk out is, and I love that you talked about susceptibility, because that's one of the things that I always want families that are new to PANS to hear is you have to heal the reason why it's happening. That is so important. And I didn't think that I had any control over the dysfunction that was causing Avery's body to do all this. And there is, and I know after, walking out the healing journey and now living many years, living life after PANS, being Avery being PANS free, our entire family healing together. I know that healing is absolutely possible. There's a lot of other families that are walking that same walk. And I love that everybody is coming together to kind of share that idea of what healing looks like. So you'll see, there's pictures and videos and everything of what it looks like for our kids going from this place of heartache and not being healthy to being healthier, and some of them being PANS free, some of them still in the middle of their healing journey. But we all know that there is true healing and that there is something better for our kids. We don't have to settle for where they're at. We have the ability to change what's going on inside their body, and we have the ability to encourage their bodies to work through this healing process that they need to work through. So I'm really excited about this video. I'm super grateful for the families that all came together to make this possible, and I hope you enjoy it.
Healing for us has looked like starting homeopathy when my daughter was only 2, and our intuition told us she needed help to be healthy. Without any firm diagnosis, and as our first option instead of a last resort. Our healing looks like growing all the way out of a failure to thrive diagnosis from improved restrictive eating and way better gut health. Like trying new foods safely. Like sleeping and tolerating heat and exercise better. Like getting to actually enjoy vacations. Like happily going barefoot and getting dirty without sensory meltdowns. Like bringing a pet into our home without worrying about reactions. Like just doing regular kid stuff. Healing looks like going from barely surviving to living life to finally on our way to thriving. There's no such thing as too young for homeopathy, and we're so thankful for how far we've come, how we got here, and where we're going next.
Healing allows me to be myself. Healing to me is freedom.
Healing to me looks like endless possibilities.
Healing to me means being the best version of myself.
Thanks,
Resilience!
PANS mom, going through PANS, walking this out, it is all about community and being able to connect with other families. I know we all help each other through the process. So if you would like to connect with any of the families that you saw in the video, you are more than welcome to join us in our Facebook group, Homeopathy for Pans and Pandas. And you'll be able to connect with any of the families, many families that are in the process of healing their kiddos and, heading in the direction of PANS-free life.
Get to interact regularly with me and Jody, who have been through there and can give you a lot of support on the process to help you learn, make good decisions, and help get you through to the ultimate goal of healing from PANS and PANDAS, not having to worry about triggers and putting things in your past. So we would love to see you as part of that group. If not there, then we'd love to see you anywhere where we are all working and doing our best to make PANS and PANDAS a thing of the past and homeopathy the medicine of the future.